Hi, I'm Ricky Fort and welcome to the Real Estate 101 podcast. Join me as I lift the lid on the real estate industry and share some great stories from behind the scenes. Like and subscribe and enjoy this episode. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another Real Estate 101 podcast. My name's Ricky Fort from Geelong Real Estate Co. Very special guest today, Mark Little from Little Constructions. Welcome.
Thanks, Ricky. Great to be here.
I hear you're a podcast star. You've been on a few shows now.
Been on a couple, yeah.
What are the other shows you've been on?
Master Builders Australia had one through COVID. So that was just keeping people up to date with what was going on with COVID and businesses and what to look for and how to keep going, what to be aware of, that sort of thing. And the other one was our good friends down the road at the Times Group. Did one with them once again, talking about a tree change and what to look for when you build, obviously, on acreage and things like that. Nice. So, yeah.
Mate, it's good to start small before you come on the big podcast like this one. So, mate, no, all good. Hey, it's going to be a bit of fun. So I think I was telling you off air, there's a bit of a formula to the show. So we'll probably start off simple, mate. So tell us about where you grew up and your background and your family and all that.
Yeah, I grew up in Clifton Springs, so that was my old stomping ground back in the day. Played a lot of golf down there at Clifton Springs Golf Club.
You any good?
The older I get, the better I was.
I like that.
So it was a great place to grow up back then. You know, we had the bay on the weekends. You just disappear down the beach, and there was fishing and all sorts of things.
Are you any good at fishing?
No, definitely
no good
not.
Lines for that one?
No good lines for that one.
Pardon the pun.
And then younger sister, so we all went to Queenscliff High School, which eventually evolved into Ballerine Secondary College. So I went to the Ocean Grove campus for year 7 and 8, and then down to Queenscliff for year 9 to 11, and I left school at year 11. I had the crocodile leaning towards the marks, so I just passed year 11.
Good work.
Figured out pretty early on I was going to make a living with these, not necessarily this, but...
Or a bit of a blend of the two.
Well, I think the key is once you find something you click with and you're passionate about, it just all falls into place. It was just amazing when...
Isn't it funny how much you need school? You might not have enjoyed it, but as you said, when you go away, I was the same. I failed accounting. I remember I sat down, I was 3 minutes into my year 12 accounting exam. I was like, I'm out, walked out, and now I pay an accountant through the nose. I'm like, geez, I really could have used that if I had paid more attention. But like you said, when you're passionate about something,
well, I call it evolution. Like through high school, it's I did the very lower maths, whereas now I pretty much call myself an accountant because I'm just sitting in the office every day crunching figures out. And it's amazing once you can relate what you've learnt, it clicks and you become passionate about it and you can learn more.
Easier to retain it.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So getting into business, I never really wanted to run my own business. Dad ran a plumbing company in Geelong for many years. You know, when blokes were getting around with a ute and them and an apprentice and a dog in the back, the old man had like 12 or 15 plumbers and trucks and backhoes. He did Geelong Football Club plumbing and what else? St John of God, Geelong Private. He was sort of the plumber for all the commercial guys. And
what was the name of that business?
He was in business G&Y Little Plumbing. So, and my grandfather was a painter, ran his own painting business.
So it's in your DNA to have that.
Oh, I saw what the old man did, and he'd get up at 6 a.m. and get home at 6 o'clock and long hours and
I can't wait to replicate that.
Oh yeah, that was a lot of fun. And originally didn't want to, but it just evolves and you grow into it. And that was the thing with golf. I did golf at Clifton Springs, and then Geelong wanted me to come in and play for them, so I played Pennant in Melbourne for Geelong. And I'm playing, minor Pennant, which is their seconds. There's 7 better than them in their senior team, 5 in their minor team. I'm playing 5, so there's 12 blokes better than them at their golf club. And how many golf clubs in Melbourne? And these guys are stacking supermarket shelves during the day, practicing golf, wanting to be a pro. I'm like, I think I'll learn a better living, working extra hour a day and a Saturday and, being a builder. So that was sort of the thing where it took off from.
Brothers and sisters?
Yeah. Younger brother who's up in Melbourne and a younger sister who's living in Wangaratta now.
Have they kind of followed suit in terms of not necessarily building industry, but like owning their own businesses and...
Nah, brother's into computer hardware engineer, so I think he's
smart cookie.
Working, with.
Did he drop out in year 11?
No, definitely not. He went on to uni.
He stuck it out.
Yep.
Good boy.
And just back on that uni thing, when I left, everyone was like, "You're mad leaving. You need your VCE. You need your VCE." And I pretty much had my birthday on the Saturday, my 21st on the Saturday night, started working for myself on the Monday. I had a pretty decent car that was paid for, earning an adult wage, whereas a lot of these people had been to uni deferred for a year and had a HEC stat. So I was, years ahead of them. So as much as, trade sort of dumbed down, and through the stuff I've done within the building and construction industry, a lot of schools get funding based on kids that go to further education. Not every kid's cut out to go further education. And I know there's a bucket load of trades out there. The money they're earning now, it far surpasses, accountants and things
Doctors,
like that. Absolutely. And it's the building industry is the type of thing that I love the saying, the harder you work, the luckier you get. Absolutely.
I use that a lot.
It is, absolutely. It's if you're willing to put in and roll your sleeves up and be at the coalface and put in the hard yards, you will get rewarded.
Do you think, what's the mindset now for young guys, like when you can earn such huge wage and you don't have the responsibility of owning a business as such and having, to be responsible for your employees and that, what's that mindset gap or the mindset difference from being an employee to an employer? When especially when the money, as you said, you can be earning 150 and be an employee.
I'm talking 250, some of these kids that are, what they've gone up from. I remember I judged the Geelong Section Apprentice of the Year awards down here one year, and there was a kid that was a bricklayer, left school at 15. And he was working for his bricklayer as like the head bricklayer by the time he was 18. And he went to South Australia to get his licence or something so he could get his licence 6 months earlier so he could drive to work and drive. And he was managing 12 bricklayers under him at like 18. And you just look at these kids and you just go, the thought process and the ingenuity.
That's pretty aspirational.
Oh, mate, it was mind-blowing. Yeah. And I remember one as well. We had this refugee from Burma get up and the whole audience was nearly in tears. He's like, refugee, made it out of Burma. I'm so proud I've got a job to provide for my family.
Yeah.
And the story that he told, I'm looking around the room and there nearly wasn't a dry eye, just the pride that he had in his
Isn't
career.
it funny, like how much what year did you finish school?
Year 11.
So what year was that? 2000?
Oh, God,
90,
mate, jeez.
80, nah.
80, 70, that would have been 94, I think, 93, 94.
Was there a stigma maybe when you finished school that, like trades, you were kind of like, I think it was probably winding down by then, but like a stigma that trades, leaving school to be a tradie wasn't?
No, it was still okay. I know of a fair few people that sort of left, not quite at the year 11, but through year 12, you sort of saw them drop off because I kept in touch with people that I went to high school with. Whereas now I think that stigma's there sort of thing about the trade. It's not quite what it used to be, whereas obviously back in the day kids would drop out at 15 or 16 and go on to a trade, which, as I said, it's if you're passionate about what you do and you love what you do.
It's probably, I guess, where the stigma sticks is when kids are doing it for the wrong reasons. They just don't like the discipline or they don't like the regime of a school and they just want to get away from that. And then they go and they realise, actually, you got to be up earlier, you got to work harder. It's actually not as easy as it looks to go and be an inverted commas tradie.
It's
the
the
real
real world.
handed to you.
I call it the real world. You're stepping out into the real world where if it's 36 degrees, well, you got to be working outside. I mean, it's 36 the top nowadays.
Yeah.
But obviously, if it's 30 degrees,
Do you see
you're
a bit
working
of that?
in
Like
the
people
heat.
are getting a bit softer. You know, and people tend to, like in the industry or anything in life really, like people look for the easy road and there's a 35 point and they're watching the thing.
Bit of cotton wool, I sort of call it out there. But as I said, if you're willing to get in and have a go, you can go anywhere, and that was the benefit of the apprentice judging. It's like you didn't have to be a carpenter or a painter. You could go and be an estimator. You could go and be a site manager. You can be a construction manager, a building manager, like even a bricklayer. You have a look at the bricklayers, their bodies are clapped out by the time they're 40. Well, just do it for 10 years and then go and be a site manager.
My brother-in-law's a Fijian. He's a bricklayer.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's built for it though.
Yeah.
They're different. He's enormous. Like you could do it in his sleep.
Yeah, it's a tough gig and concreting.
Yeah.
It's tough.
But like you said, super hard on the bodies.
Yeah.
Mate, so we'll fast forward a bit because you got a great story and you got so many different chapters of it. But obviously, maybe from leaving school, getting your first job, and then wanting to work for yourself, as you said, the day you turned 21. But yeah, I guess how does Little Construction start? Obviously, we know where the name come from, but yeah, what's the...
It was sort of a bit of an evolution. So we started out, obviously I finished as I said, started working as a subcontractor, you know, the Monday after the Saturday's 21st. And then sort of there was a period there I subcontracted, got a bit jack of it, worked on wages up in Melbourne, chasing the money and didn't really like that either. So came back and subcontracted again, doing a lot of architectural stuff around Barwon Heads, Point Lonsdale area. And that was great. And that sort of got my hunger to get registered. Yes. Once I got registered, I did do a lot of architectural new homes renovations. It was challenging to sort of...
working on these, or like,
yeah,
once you're registered.
My evolution was obviously I call it a builder with a nail bag on, and then obviously I'm a builder that's an accountant. That's the evolution I've gone to, where I sort of made a choice within my business that I can't do both. I can't do everything, whereas no one's going to run a business the way I want the business run, so I'll find people to do the work on site. Yeah. It's like with a restaurant. There's people that buy businesses in their restaurant and they're either front of house and they have a chef, or you find head chefs and they put someone front of house. I made a decision.
It's a good analogy.
Yeah. I made a decision with the business that, you know,
I don't want to be the chef.
Don't want to be the chef.
Yeah.
You know, I want to be that project manager sort of thing. So recognise that, and the architect stuff was hard yards. It was challenging, you know, just managing jobs from Anglesea to Point Lonsdale, you know, and everywhere in between. Whereas my family history is Western District farming. Cousin's got a farm at Lesmore. Uncle's still got his farm at Berrybank. So love that sort of space. So there was an opportunity, I think it was early 2000s, I think it was. We built our first display home out at Bannockburn, and we got into that acreage type home building, and we just love it.
What's the catch saying with the business?
Country homes for country people.
Love it.
Yeah, it's getting trademarked at the moment.
You heard it here first.
Yes.
Yep. So, yeah, and then obviously becoming an employee and putting more people on and growing the business, I guess, what are some of the challenges, and what have you enjoyed about it? What haven't you enjoyed?
Yeah, look, it's one of the things that I was very naive. You know, I was young when I got registered. At the time, I think I was one of the youngest registered builders in Victoria. And you're very naive. You think you're going to come out and you're going to make and I still see it today. You think you're going to come out and just take the world by storm. And it's got a real quick way of checking your ego. And I learnt very early on that it's more about the relationships you have with people than, you know, I thought I'd just build houses for everyone and anyone. And it's about relationships. And if you're not gelling with someone to start with, don't force the relationship. And it's not just in business, it's in everything. Don't force a relationship that's not there.
What do you think's the biggest mistake you've made?
Forcing those relationships, yeah. I know early on I had a great product, but I was very tunnel vision, very strict, stringent.
Like, as in you wanted to sell it to whoever would... Yeah, okay.
You know, just this is what the contract says, this is what we're doing. Whereas once again, my business model is I just want to do 10 or 12 houses a year, that's it. I've got no interest in doing more than that. And to do that, you need to be flexible. You need to be accommodating.
Yeah. Any regrets with like working with the wrong people or projects that have gone bad or?
Yeah, look, I think with everyone, it's all learning. That's purely what the world is learning.
Yep.
You know, you learn when you're challenged, when things don't go to plan. You don't sort of sweep it under the carpet. You go, right, how did that happen? Why did that happen? You know, how can we stop that happening again? Which
Any
is
good
obviously
expensive ones spring to mind?
Oh yeah. I don't really want to revisit them. Therapy costs too much to get over them. You know, and that's the evolution. I've obviously got the building business now, and I've just started up a consulting business because I feel my knowledge and experience. The textbook says this, but in real life, when you go there, this is what's actually going to happen. Yeah.
Tell us a bit about, obviously, the Master Builder Association. Obviously, fair bit of LinkedIn work before you got here, mate.
Yeah.
Going deep. But Obviously master builder from a real estate agent perspective, it's something gets thrown around a lot, built by a master builder and all this sort of stuff, and maybe it gets glossed over what it actually means to be a part of the association. But not only are you part of it, you're running the joint.
Yeah, that was an experience.
How many years?
Yeah, so I got involved with Master Builders through the Geelong section. I think back in late 2000s, 2008, someone dobbed me in for the committee there, and then obviously worked my way up to be
when you
chairman
say
of that.
not to go a bit granular.
Yeah.
When you say dobbed you in and that, so I guess what do they like about?
Yep.
Because they're selective, obviously.
Well, Master Builders is obviously, it's a membership organisation that represents builders. So their job is to educate builders, provide legal, provide contracts, provide OH&S. They just represent builders. And obviously there's so many mum and dad builders that are at the coalface. So Master Builders gives, rather than each individual has a small voice, by pulling everyone together, it gives a greater voice. So obviously that was my starting point, where I joined the Geelong section on the committee, and then worked my way up to chair of the Geelong section, and through that then I got a role in Melbourne on the country sector. So country sector was anyone in Geelong that had issues, they brought to me, and I took them up to Melbourne to sort of say, hey guys, this is what our members are up against. This is what we need to do, or this is the issue, what solutions do you guys have? Because obviously they're a governing body, which they can go to the government and say, this is what we're happening, give examples, that sort of thing, and try and, just assist our members at the end of the day. Obviously, back in the day through my apprenticeship, the last year of my apprenticeship, I won 4 awards for carpentry and things like that. So I'm a big one on life paths, and my role to president, I think, was sort of started in the role back then, which was 97, 98.
They're probably the best leaders too, from people that have started at the base.
I think that was, my job was to represent 6,500 members, and I think I did a really good job in challenging times through COVID. I got elected just at the start of COVID, which once again from country sector, I got on the council of management, the council management, the board, and then I was actually the first president to be elected by the members in like 18 or 20 years. So hopefully we can say that the members liked me if they voted me in.
We were just having a quick look before you got on air. Like, where was that photo board with all the presidents?
Oh yeah, that's
shots?
They've got a wall up at Melbourne there, where they've got a wall, the president's wall.
You honestly, there's probably like 60 or 70 faces on there. You'll be able to tell me, but I think you were the youngest by about 40 years. You look like you don't belong there.
We didn't have records. I was the first president. There was a president that represented
with a full head of hair. You were
yes. There was a president that came from Ballarat, but he was commercial based. I was the first president that was, come from the country sort of thing. So
it's a good country boy.
Absolutely,
absolutely. You'd be proud of that. I guess tell us about running the show during COVID.
Yep.
Yeah, what are some of the highlights? And there would have been stacks of lowlights, obviously. Hearing a lot of people doing it tough.
Yeah, there was. We had our Get the Jab campaign.
That was very hard.
Yeah, I had death threats. People ring and threaten my well-being, which was definitely the low point, because all we were doing was, the government said, to get our lives back, this is what we need to do. So we're like, if the government says we need to do this to get our lives back, we're out advocating to do that. And obviously we know that there's always two sides to every story, and everyone's entitled to, their opinion in that, but it was such a polarising topic.
Still is.
It was really confronting, because all I believed I was doing was trying to assist our members to get their livelihoods back and get people back on site, because we had numbers, we were restricted numbers, we're only allowed like 4 or 5 trades on site.
I remember driving past sites and there's blokes doing roofing and he's got a face mask on.
Yeah. It was surreal.
Yeah.
Well, I look back at the time now and it was just surreal. So the death threats were definitely the low points, but then obviously we came out of it. Yeah, there was 2. They were, obviously it was great. They were from private numbers and left messages, which is, it's tough, but obviously private numbers and messages, but when you hear it and it's directed at
That's
you,
not cool.
No. It was really challenging to sort. It took me a couple of weeks to work through that. I sort of pulled back a little bit from the media for a couple of weeks, just to try and regather myself. But once again, as I said, everything I did in that time as president was, for the better of the industry and our members, which is why, once again, an opportunity came up for me to sit on our Master Builders Australia national office in Canberra. So I grabbed that as well because, I think it's important that up in Canberra, they call it the bubble. Yeah, it's the bubble, mate. They need to hear what's happening at the coalface for the members, because obviously MBV is a member of Master Builders Australia, so obviously I was then portraying the issues that we were having in Victoria are up to them. But because every state and territory's laws were different, what applied to Victoria didn't apply to Western Australia, or what applied to Western Australia didn't apply to Northern Territory. So it was challenging to juggle that expectation.
And then, so tell us about your time as, the top dog. So from going,
Yeah, it was 2.5 year term, which was by the end of it,
was long enough.
I was cooked. I was fried, which is why I stepped down from national as well. It was someone else's turn. I thought, look, if I can give it 80%, a lot of people said your 80% is someone else's 110%.
Yeah.
But I didn't have it in me anymore, and it's someone else's turn. So, you get that fresh set of eyes, that fresh set brain, different avenues. So, Jeff Purcell is on there now as president from Kane. He's doing a great job. Master Builders got a new CEO, Michaela, and they're working great together. So, yeah.
So fun obviously complex, but fun memories.
Yeah, look, during the time we had some good awards ceremonies. We highlighted some great work. As I said, our advocacy for our members during COVID, we managed to, keep the building and construction industry open. I think over the whole time, you have a look at how many industries were shut down. Building construction was only shut down for 2 weeks during that whole COVID time.
I just remember what an uproar it was too, like being a business owner myself and, paying a commercial lease and friends with cafes and stuff like that, and everyone else was doing it tough for a really long period of time. I get it, like there was restrictions with the trade and that, but I remember the hysteria, what happened, like guys going down the main street of Melbourne and stuff when the building industry got shut down for 2 weeks. It's like, boys, boys and girls, we've been going through this for X.
We got told we were ungrateful.
Like, it's like, whoa. It was, when you go back to that polarization, it was just another thing that would have been so hard to be around or part of. And
yeah, it was. And as we said, and what happened after it, no one could have predicted what happened, because obviously through COVID, all the mills pulled back their production. And then the government introduced their stimulus, and everyone in the industry says it was like a light switch was flicked.
Yep.
Western Australia, I think it was 6 or 7 years going down. They went vertical overnight. I think through federal and state grants, they got somewhere between $65,000 and $85,000 worth of grants. So from 6 or 7 years of down to vertical overnight was just unprecedented.
I guess it's a good segue now to go into we'll talk more about your specific company and what you're doing with that, but I guess what do you from a broader economy in the building industry and that sort of thing, like you just got to read the news every second day and another builder's gone under and that sort of thing. So I guess what are you seeing on the coalface? I know you said you've only got aspirations of doing quality over quantity and you don't want to build 20 more houses a year or whatever, but I guess what are you still seeing?
There's still,
because we're paying for that now.
We are. There's still that overflow. A lot of people are still building their backlog, but a lot of guys are coming out of that backlog. So a lot of the stuff that through my consulting business, I'm talking to owners where their builder has gone into administration, and they're asking advice, where are we at? What do we do? I spoke at a breakfast the other morning to women in Insolvency Recovery Victoria, just about that insolvency, because how do we manage when our builder goes broke? What do we do? Where do we go? Who do we turn to? So that's the challenging part. A lot of these builders are building now in 2023 contracts that they signed up in 2021. So CPI, hopefully everyone knows CPI, for our business prior to COVID was 1.2 to 1.4% for 5, 6, 8 years before that. in the peak of COVID, we were at 1% a month. Like that was just, it was just crazy. It was steel, it was wood, it was labour, it was pipes, it was plaster, it was you name it. It was just so volatile. So that's those increases. If you were locked into a fixed price contract, it's just coming out of your margin at the end.
I
of the
guess
day.
just so the general public have an understanding too of what that means for fixed price contracts and the government's role in stepping in and changing legislation around that, because like essentially you're forcing builders to go broke for stuff that's not really.
Well, when I was at Master Builders, I keep saying I'm not there anymore. When I was aligned with Master Builders, we lobbied the government for rise and fall. We didn't believe in cost escalation because that would have been unfair on the consumer, but we believed that rise and fall was a fair thing to put forward for the consumer, and it'll protect the builder and the consumer. So that if prices go up, yes, the client pays extra, but obviously if anything comes down, the consumer gets a refund on it as well. Because what you were finding by the time, as I said, if CPI was running at 1% a month, you were doing, say, a $400,000 build, in 5 or 6 months, it's gone up $25,000 or $30,000.
Yep.
That's a lot of money. And if it's not one job, it's 10 jobs. Well, times that 25 to 30 by 10 jobs, that's a lot of money for small businesses to be wearing. And when you've got trade and material shortages too, some of your stage claims for your base frame, lock up, fix, that sort of thing, all of a sudden your build time's doubled. So you're wearing lots of money for an extended period of time.
Felt like a lose-lose. I don't know anyone that did super well out of that.
I'm struggling to find anyone. Everyone's still really burnt from that time. We were calling it, once again, Master Builders, we were calling it the profitless boom there at one stage, because everyone had a lot of work, but they weren't making the money they usually would because they were paying to get it done. So it was it was a challenging position, because you as a consumer needed your house built, but the builder needed to be profitable to stay in business. So I felt sorry for the builder and the homeowner, because if the homeowner refused to pay it, it heightened the chance of the builder going broke and being left with a half-finished product. So it was a really, really delicate situation. Is like, if we advocate for the builder, well, the homeowner's unfair. If we advocate for the homeowner, then the builder's unfair. Like, how can we get this so that both parties are equally disadvantaged, so that you want the homeowner? What we experienced with Porter Davis when they went under, it was just a bloodbath where people were left with half-finished, unfinished house, and we don't want that. This is the biggest expense that people make in their life. We want them in their homes.
It always, the worst brings out the worst in people, obviously, and you saw on the news, like, sites getting, blokes pulling roofs off houses.
They burnt one down in Berwick or something.
Because I get it, like, the tradies, like, well, I've paid for these materials. I own this stuff.
Yep.
I haven't been paid for it.
Yeah.
It's just a nightmare. Like you said, it was a lose-lose.
I feel sorry for the consumers, because they're the ones that lose out at the end of the day. Yes, the builder loses out as well, but there was a builder in Werribee that went broke, and he went hat in hand to 12 clients and said, look, I need 1%, 2%, 3%. I think there was 3 or 4 of the clients said, yes, we'll cough it up, and the others went, nah, fixed price contract, we're not paying you. That builder then went under, and the people that paid turned on the people that didn't pay. So if you guys had paid that money, we wouldn't be in this position.
We'd all have.
And I understand what the Domestic Building Contracts Act says and legislation and all that sort of stuff, but at the end of the day, you want to be in your house.
It's depressing.
Yes.
I guess, mate, what are you trying to be a lighter topic?
Yeah.
What are you kind of seeing? How are we going to get that return to confidence in the industry? Because I read an article yesterday about how land sales volume's gone down 37% in the last month alone, which obviously you don't need to be a brain surgeon to forecast that is going to be, less properties going through to construction. And as you said, that pipeline drying up for everyone. What's going to be the catalyst to bring back confidence?
I think what we've got to look at we're coming out of a time where we're running at unprecedented demand. like the demand far outstripped supply. So we need to go back, I reckon, 5 years, because obviously prior to COVID, is probably where we need to compare the yardstick to, because everything once COVID hit became distorted. I'll use timber for example. So Australia, if we need 100% of our timber, we produce 80%, we import 20%. So what I was saying before, when they shut the mills down at COVID, because the demand wasn't there was no point producing the timber if no one was buying it. What happened?
But did they necessarily, the demand went down, or the expectation that the demand would come down?
The expectation and the demand, both.
Yep.
So that's why they were shutting mills and people on holidays and all that sort of stuff. And then the stimulus hit and we just went vertical. So once again, if we're importing 20%, producing 80%, well, when the mills closed down and through bushfires and things like that, we were producing 65%. But then what else happened was that we were running at 120% of capacity. So there was this massive, and our import dropped down to 5% when that ship blocked. Remember the ship blocked the Suez Canal? Yeah. Our import was running at 5%. So there was a 40 to 50% black hole of timber. So that created the lag and the delay as well. So it was... Everyone says the perfect storm. I hate that because perfect's good.
Yeah. It's accurate though, I guess.
Whatever the opposite way. I don't know whether I can swear on this.
Yeah, let it rip,
Yeah, I just call it the shit storm, the shit show, because it all just compounded on itself. It was, window companies struggling to get glass and powder-coated aluminium. Plaster companies struggling to keep up with gyprock, with the supply and demand of gyprock. So it just fed off itself.
So to see that return of confidence come back, what's got to happen?
I still, and this is just my view, I still think we might get one more rate rise. I think it'll only be 0.15. I don't think it'll be much. But I can see interest rates, what they're doing has really pulled back spending, which is obviously created the inflationary environment that we're in. I can see things stabilising, and there's still people out there. There's genuine people out there that are comfortable where interest rates are at the moment. There's still some confidence out there, but I think it probably, once we get 3 or 4 months with no change to interest rates, people will go, right, where are we at? We're actually not paying as much as we were before, and they're predicting that interest rates will start coming down in March, sort of April. So, once...
And then the boom starts again.
I hope it's not a boom. I think the problem was when we hit, what do they say, 4-year cycles? When COVID hit, we were due for a bit of a downturn, but because of the stimulus, we had the opposite. So, I hope it's not a recession. I hope it's just a downturn. Or a softening, because, as I said, a lot of people are just building their backlog. So hopefully it'll just soften that and we won't hit the R word, and we'll just have a bit of a soften and things will start to stabilise.
I think talking about like the demand level, I know I'm on the coalface. I know the amount of people that want to buy a house and want to build a house, but it's just around confidence. I don't want to be the prophet or whatever, but I think the demand is going to be so huge that as soon as we get any return to confidence, it's just going to go gangbusters again. I'm not sure if that's what Australia needs, but I think that's what's going to happen.
Well, we look at Geelong, and if we look at Geelong's the biggest growth corridor in Australia, the whole of Australia over the last 10 years. Geelong's grown at 26.4%. That's greater than the Sunshine Coast, Gold Coast. I don't know why you want to move down here when you got that up there. But as you said, when that confidence comes back, if we've grown that much through those times, imagine when they're behind us, what we're going to grow. And obviously you've seen the market. Prior to COVID, someone in Melbourne could sell in Melbourne and come down to Geelong and have 250, 300 grand in their pocket. But now Geelong prices are obviously, we're nearly just a satellite suburb of Melbourne. We're on parity with Melbourne.
Yeah. Well, I've got connections and colleagues that work for, Metricon, Simmons, Gardner, like some of the bigger brands and just sales consultants there. But they're all, prior to COVID or like during COVID, I guess they were like signing, 8 to 10 clients a month per salesperson. And then you hear now that, between the team, there might be 3 or 4 for the month between a team. It's a lot of hungry mouths. So I just don't understand how there could be 10 customers per sales agent per business and then
where have they gone?
They still need to live somewhere. And with the immigration and the borders opening and stuff like that, I think it's
Well, we had no immigration, remember, through COVID. So that's a way the government can help soften it, get that immigration back in, and that'll hopefully ease that supply and demand, because I think the average time people stay in a house now is 3.6 or 4.2 years.
Close to 7 or whatever it was.
Exactly. So we've got to look at that now. Through the stimulus, a lot of people would have built a house rather than renovated. So we'll probably go through a time now where people may not build, they'll renovate, but we'll look for that cycle where they'll start to build again.
Yeah. What do you know about? Do you know much about like the northern kind of suburbs growth corridor?
Yeah, look, that's obviously Armstrong Creek's been the massive one for Geelong over the last 10 or 12 years.
Yeah.
So what the idea is now is to get people out rather than coming in through Geelong with that congestion. So there's massive growth corridors, obviously out Lovely Banks, Lara way, which, as we know, with the commute now, it's nearly quicker to commute from Lara to Melbourne than it is, from the outer suburbs of Melbourne into Melbourne. I was talking to someone the other day, and I forget that was talking about an hour 20 to travel 20 Ks, and it was just, crazy. So
I think it'll be exciting. Obviously, it's that whole next chapter in Geelong's story. Yeah, as you said, the all that Armstrong Creek, Mount Duneed, Charlemont side, and it feels like they will still continue to build that forever. Like that's going to touch Torquay at some point, right? Like that's inevitable. That's going to happen. But that whole side out there, I think, and you being a country boy, heading towards the Yuyangs and stuff, some of the land out there is,
well, you just have to have a look at, obviously, Torquay and Ocean Grove with the sea change. You look at Bannockburn with the tree change.
Yep.
You look at Inverleigh, Teesdale, Mauriac. Our last display home was in Mauriac, and what we paid for the block and built the house and sold it for. I don't think we'll ever see in our lifetime the growth. I was talking to my dad about it. My grandfather built a house in Bendigo. He was returned from war, and that was the last supply and demand where he could get some timber, so he'd do some framing, then he'd have to wait for weatherboards or wait for windows. So that was that last supply and demand sort of period. So what's that, 60 years? So this is sort of that once in a lifetime, well, Dad, because he's 70, he's seen it twice, but it's potentially for a lot of us that once in a lifetime cycle. And we've got to look at that. There's a lot of people out there now that are in business. That the last was GFC, and GFC, remember, didn't go into negative. We weren't a recession. It was a downturn, but we didn't go into negative. Where there's a lot of people out there in business now that haven't seen a downturn, haven't seen a recession, haven't seen high interest rates. So it's going to be adjustment for a lot of people.
I think even in our industry, like it's a bit of a cesspool, to be honest, mate. That's why we've got such a bad reputation, because it's such a low bar of entry to make. Same thing, guys that didn't go to uni, a bit like a tradie, you can earn between 100 and 300, like with just your time.
Yep.
But we're starting to see like a few of them drop out now. Which is really indicator people follow the money.
And I think, as we said before, the money, and everyone in this room would know, the money comes when you enjoy what you do.
Yeah.
If you chase the money, you'll it's flawed.
That's why you watch people come in and out, and your industry's no different.
Yeah. That's why I'm quite proud. Obviously, started the business, as I said, when I was 21, turning 46 this year.
Yeah.
So it's 25 years.
Have you got kids?
Yeah.
Boys or girls? Or?
Ava turned 17 this year. Byron just turned 14. He's already got me. He's just over 6'2", so he's into basketball. Yeah. Brandon, stay away. And then youngest Elise is getting into her netball. She's 11.
So any interest in little constructions for the family? Will it be passed down, or what's the...
Oh, I don't know. Look, it's been...
You wouldn't do it to them.
I don't know whether I'd do it to them. It's been the best industry, but it's also been the most challenging. But I think it's just when you are self-employed and work for yourself anyway. When it's the best industry, it's up and about and it's going well. And this is the thing, when you're up and about, you're making the money, but you're also very conscious. It's like, I've got to store it away for that downturn, because I'm going to need that when the downturn comes. So it's not as though, you're making heaps of money, and then it's that balancing act to ensure it's the long game. You're not just in business for 3, 4, 5 years, although the amount of businesses that do go under in the first 5 years is just, I think it's 57%. It's a massive number.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty proud, obviously, that our business has been around for 25 years.
Hung around a little while.
Yeah.
Yep. Awesome.
Don't know whether that's smart or stupid.
Any advice for your 25-year-old self?
Oh, jeez. That's a real tough one, because as much as the bad experiences that I had, you learn far more from the mental learning and the money that comes out. You learn far more. We use the analogy at sport. You learn more from a loss than you do a win. And I think that's the thing with business. It's just, make sure if something happens. I was talking to someone about the other day. It's like, we're on this journey and we're here, and how do we solve this problem? I'm like, well, don't worry about solving it here. It's already happened. You need to trek back to here and find out why it happened and fix it here.
Got in front of it.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's probably the only thing. I don't think I'd change much. Yes, it's been challenging and hard, but as I said, it's everything that challenges you is a great experience to learn from.
On that note, we'll wrap it up. Mark, amazing. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast and
appreciate it.
Sharing your story. And hopefully a lot of young guys got, not just the building industry, but got a lot out of it. And I think you got a lot more to give. Where can people find you on socials?
Mainly LinkedIn. Pretty heavy on LinkedIn.
Yep, perfect.
That's probably the main one, plugging both, obviously, myself and the building business and the consulting business now. So, yeah.
Awesome, mate. Thank you so much for coming on the show. We could have kept going. We might get you back in for another one. But, thank you for everything, Mark. And you're very generous with your time. So, thank you so much.
I appreciate it. It's been great.
Awesome.
Thank you.